They said it would never happen, but 11 states just banned new gas R-vees, and dealers are panicking. In Arizona and Colorado, sales were halted mid-title. Owners trying to renew plates in California are being told not compliant. It's the same rig, same engine, but overnight it's illegal to sell and buy. Prices are collapsing, and most folks don't even know why. Stick around. I'll name the states that flipped, the next ones on deck, and the cheap rigs you can still register before the gate slams shut. When the road closed overnight, it started quietly. No breaking news, no flashing alerts, just a few lines buried in a state registry update. But within weeks, RV owners across the country began hearing the same rumor. Recreational vehicles were being banned in certain states. When the dust settled, 11 states had confirmed new restrictions that made it nearly impossible to register or buy most gas-powered RVs. The list was shocking. Alaska, Texas, California, Montana, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Alabama. For millions of travelers who saw their rigs as symbols of freedom, those names now sounded like closed gates. Dealers in Arizona and Colorado reported sudden holds on titles, and registration offices in California began rejecting applications for newly imported rigs. Owners described being blindsided, watching as their resale values dropped overnight. An RV that might have sold for $75,000 last spring was suddenly worth closer to $60,000. Families planning summer trips now faced uncertainty, and snowbirds heading south feared being turned away at state lines. Nobody knew who to blame, only that the road itself no longer felt open. The bans seemed spontaneous, but behind them sat a single document written years ago, one law that started the entire domino effect, the law behind the curtain. The heart of the issue lies in a California rule that most RV owners never knew existed: the Advanced Clean Trucks Regulation passed by the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. On paper, it targeted large commercial vehicles. In practice, it swept up nearly every motorhome heavier than 8,500 pounds. The rule demands that by the year 2036, every new truck or van sold in the state must produce zero emissions. The yearly quotas rise fast, starting at 11% and climbing toward 100% within a decade. For RV owners, this wasn't just policy, it was paralysis. Most manufacturers have no zero-emission chassis, even in testing. That means a Class A coach built in Indiana or Alabama cannot legally be registered in California after 2025, unless it runs on an electric drivetrain that does not yet exist. The law was written for freight, but its weight limit caught the entire RV industry in its net. Paperwork meant for delivery trucks now governs families' homes on wheels. If California had stood alone, the damage might have been containable, but other states quietly began copying the same playbook. If this breakdown's helping you make sense of what's really happening, hit that like button and drop a comment with your state. Let's see how far these bans have spread. The states that followed. What started as one environmental mandate spread through the country faster than anyone expected. Under Section 177 of the Clean Air Act, states can legally adopt California's emission standards instead of federal ones. By late 2024, 10 others had either signed on or introduced matching language. Colorado filed first, citing air parity. New Mexico followed. Nevada and Arizona drafted similar bills. Even states with deep oil roots like Texas and Alaska began reviewing clean transportation frameworks. To the public, it looked coincidental, but industry insiders saw coordination. Lobby filings showed identical phrasing across proposals, and environmental lobbyists appeared in multiple hearings under different organizational names. The same 8,500-pound threshold appeared in every draft. By the time national media noticed, 11 states were already locked in. For owners, it felt like waking up to find every route fenced off by identical rules. The bans weren't spontaneous, they were synchronized. Now that the rule had spread, the question shifted from where it came from to who it would hurt first, and that answer depended entirely on weight. The weight of the rule. Weight is now destiny in the RV world. The cutoff, 8,500 pounds, divides what survives from what dies. Most Class B camper vans, built on lighter Mercedes and Ford chassis, come in just under the limit and will likely stay legal. But nearly all Class C rigs sit between 10,000 and 12,000 pounds, making them instant casualties. Super C and Class A motorhomes range from 13,000 to over 30,000 pounds. Unregisterable under the new law. Used models from earlier years can still be transferred covered for now, but any motorhome built in or after 2025 faces restrictions. Manufacturers can't meet the quotas, meaning supply will collapse while older rigs spike in value. Buyers searching for affordable options will discover a vanishing market, where legal simply means light and stripped of power. The industry's backbone, diesel pushers, family haulers, and long-range Class A's, is being forced off the road, not by age, but by arithmetic. As owners scramble to adapt, one question echoes through the camps and factory floors alike. Who stands to gain from killing gas rigs? The air we breathe. When California pushed for the Advanced Clean Trucks rule, officials justified it with numbers that were impossible to ignore. State data showed that transportation accounted for more than half of all greenhouse gas emissions, and studies linked high ozone levels to thousands of hospital visits each year. Federal records revealed that in Los Angeles County alone, asthma-related emergencies had risen by 23% since 2015. To lawmakers, that was enough to trigger sweeping change. The Environmental Protection Agency warned that states failing to meet air quality standards could face penalties, and California decided to act before federal enforcement arrived. Hidden in the paperwork lies the outrage. The rule treats families driving 5,000 miles a year like freight haulers running daily. R-vees cause under 1% of California's emissions, yet face identical limits. The math fails, leaving one question: if not mileage, what is this really about? The answer, as it turns out, lies not in the air, but in the fine print of how other states began copying California's law, word for word. The policy domino effect. When California writes a rule, other states watch. Section 177 of the Clean Air Act allows any state to adopt California's stricter standards instead of federal ones, and that's how the dominoes began to fall. Internal communications reviewed by policy analysts show that Colorado's Department of Public Health received guidance directly from California's Air Resources Board on how to implement a mirrored version. Within months, similar drafts surfaced in New Mexico, Nevada, and Arizona. Even Texas circulated an early, clean transport proposal carrying identical weight and emissions thresholds. Funding traces back to groups like the Environmental Defense Fund and Renewable Transport Consortiums that spent over $70 million lobbying from 2019 to 2024. Their goal wasn't banning R-vees, it was enforcing standards only major electric manufacturers could meet, masking profit strategy as environmental progress. The statewide laws made headlines, but a quieter front opened in city councils and zoning boards where the next phase of restrictions began to take shape. Zoning wars and local limits. Across the western United States, local ordinances began reshaping how and where people could park or camp in their rigs. In Los Angeles, a 2023 measure banned overnight parking for vehicles longer than 22 feet within city limits, citing public safety and environmental disruption. Phoenix followed with similar language, while Denver created low-emission districts that required permits even for stationary R-vees in storage. Each regulation appeared small and local, but together they created an invisible wall for travelers. In Colorado Springs, police fine R-vee owners $200 for idling, while Arizona's new spacing rules cut campground spots 30%. Locals feel slowly pushed out. These small laws normalize control, making future statewide bans seem inevitable and resistance futile. While cities tightened their ordinances, the real crisis brewed inside the factories, where R-vee production lines started grinding to a halt. The industry's breaking point. In Indiana, the heart of America's R-vee manufacturing, managers are now counting losses instead of orders. Compliance with the zero-emission rules would add between $55,000 and $70,000 to the cost of each motorhome, according to internal estimates from two major builders. Electric chassis options remain unavailable at scale, and suppliers in Michigan and Illinois report shortages that delay deliveries by months. Plants that once ran 2 shifts a day now operate on half schedules. Layoffs began in the second quarter of 2025. With nearly 3,000 positions cut across the region. Executives admit privately that if the rule continues, they may shut down entire Class A lines by next year. Local economies built around R-vee jobs, metal fabricators, upholstery shops, and transport services are already feeling the chill. For decades, the industry symbolized mobility and craftsmanship. Now it's facing a forced slowdown disguised as progress. And when factories pause, what happens to the families living off them? The stranded nomads. For full-time R-veers, the road was more than a hobby, it was home. Couples who sold everything to live on the move are now discovering that freedom has an expiration date. In states like California and Colorado, registration renewals are being rejected for rigs built after 2025 unless they meet zero-emission criteria. One retired couple from Arizona, Mark and Linda Rowe, said they were told their diesel Class A was no longer compliant, even though it passed every inspection. "We've driven 45,000 miles in 5 years and paid every tax," Mark said. "Now they say we can't park in half the places we used to." Snowbirds chasing warm weather now face invisible borders. Many fear Florida will ban them next. Online resale listings surge, but buyers hesitate, fearing unregisterable rigs. Once a symbol of freedom, RV life now feels like exile. Open roads ruled by hidden laws. But stranded travelers aren't the only ones paying the price. Entire communities built around their arrival are beginning to fade away. Campgrounds on the edge. From Montana to New Mexico, small-town economies depend on travelers stopping for the night, refueling, and spending money locally. Now, campground owners are watching those numbers collapse. According to data from the RV Industry Association's tourism report, bookings in affected states dropped between 30 and 40% since early 2025. In Colorado's San Luis Valley, owner Kathy Monroe said her family campground sits half empty for the first time in 20 years. "We used to turn people away by June," she said. "Now we're offering discounts and still can't fill the lots." The impact is instant. Diners cut hours, hardware stores stall, gas stations shut early, tourism dollars vanish, and towns without other industries lose their only lifeline. Without traveling RVers fueling local economies, communities fade. Mile by mile, whole towns die. And as the local businesses struggle, dealers and builders who once filled those same highways with new rigs are collapsing under their own financial weight. Dealers and builders in freefall. Dealerships once lined up gleaming rows of Class A and Class C rigs, engines humming and salesmen grinning. Now those same lots look like storage yards. In Arizona, several dealers have slashed prices by tens of thousands to clear inventory. One model that sold for $250,000 last year now sits marked down to $179,000 and still won't move. Floor plan loans, the credit lines dealers use to finance their stock, are eating them alive. Interest payments pile up each month as new buyers disappear. Mechanics and builders feel the hit. In Indiana's Elkhart County, small manufacturers shut down, leaving unfinished shells. Workers sent home wait for clarity on what's legal to build. America's proud RV hub now stands as another casualty of policy-driven chaos. Desperation has now shifted from factories to courtrooms, where lawyers and lobbyists fight to buy time for the only lifestyle still worth saving. If you never want to be blindsided by new RV laws or dealer tricks again, subscribe now so you'll always know what's coming before it hits your driveway. Courtrooms and carve-outs. The legal battle over RV restrictions is unfolding across multiple states. The RV Industry Association has filed petitions demanding that recreational vehicles be exempt from the heavy truck classification used by California's Air Resources Board. In Washington, hearings scheduled for late 2025 will determine whether manufacturers can continue selling combustion models until electric alternatives exist. Legal teams representing thousands of owners argue that applying freight standards to private vehicles violates consumer protection laws. But so far, the victories are temporary. Some judges have granted short-term injunctions, pausing enforcement in limited regions, but the larger bans remain intact. The next major test comes in early 2026, when a federal court reviews whether the Environmental Protection Agency overstepped its authority. Industry insiders hope a national ruling could freeze the bans for at least a year. But even if the lawsuits succeed, new states are already drafting their own copies of the rule. The courtroom clock ticks louder each day, and freedom on the road is running out of time. Next on the list, the list of banned states may not stop at 11. Data from the Environmental Protection Agency's regional offices shows that Florida, Georgia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania are all reviewing policies that mirror California's zero-emission standard. Florida's Department of Environmental Protection has already opened a clean transportation public comment period for 2026, while Pennsylvania legislators are drafting an Air Quality Modernization Act that includes identical vehicle weight language. Air quality maps show these states highlighted in red for non-compliance zones, meaning they can legally justify adopting stricter measures to meet federal targets. Analysts warn that if 2 more states join the bans, the heavy gas RV market could shrink 25%. Dealers already cut large model orders, turning to compact vans as the California-born domino effect spreads east, redrawing America's travel map. But while lawmakers copy regulations, everyday citizens are building a different kind of movement, one aimed at defending the right to travel freely. The people push back. Across social media groups, owner forums, and campground rallies, a wave of quiet resistance is taking shape. R-vees aren't marching in the streets. They're organizing strategically. A national petition led by the group Freedom to Roam has gathered more than 250,000 signatures, demanding that recreational vehicles be classified separately from freight carriers. In Georgia, local clubs are training volunteers to contact legislators before upcoming votes, while online networks provide template letters and call scripts for residents to use. Owners are joining class action lawsuits, claiming states devalued once legal vehicles. Others act defensively, registering early, storing rigs in low-restriction states, and sharing updates online. It's preservation, not rebellion. A united community protecting its freedom and lifestyle within the limits of the law. Yet even as owners fight back, many are starting to realize that the R-vees dream itself may need to evolve to survive. Redefining the R-vees dream. Adapting doesn't mean surrendering, it means rethinking what freedom on wheels looks like. Innovators across the country are already designing lighter rigs, converting diesel engines to hybrid systems, and experimenting with modular electric drivetrains. A few small builders in Texas and Montana are testing off-grid hybrids capable of recharging through rooftop solar panels instead of plug-in stations. At the same time, older, proven rigs under $5,000 are becoming the new heroes of the market. They're simple, repairable, and cheap to maintain, exactly what fixed-income travelers need. Mechanics now teach do-it-yourself engine swaps and emissions fixes, while creators show how to retrofit older rigs. The industry that once chased luxury now values practicality, proving the road warrior dream isn't gone. It's simply steering toward independence, durability, and simplicity. Still, every revolution in mobility comes with a moral question, one that reaches far beyond engines and emissions. Crossroads, the new American road. America's identity has always been tied to motion, to open highways, roadside diners, and the promise that anyone can head west and start again. Now, that promise feels conditional. As regulations tighten, the freedom to travel becomes a privilege, not a right, controlled by paperwork and policy. Owners once proud of their self-reliance now wait for bureaucratic approval before turning a key. The map of opportunity that once stretched from coast to coast is being redrawn, one regulation at a time. Yet hope remains in the people, refusing to let go. From retirees rebuilding vintage campers to families learning how to live smaller, the spirit of the road still burns beneath the surface. Technology may change and laws may shift, but the longing to roam cannot be legislated out of existence. The final question is not about horsepower or emissions. It's about ownership of freedom itself. When the map changes again, will you still have the right to roam? If you take one thing from this video, let it be this: don't get caught off guard. The next round of bans could roll out before registration renewals even open. I'll keep tracking every new state list, dealer freeze, and refund loophole as it happens. So hit subscribe and turn on alerts, not for hype, but for protection, because the next video could be the one that saves you thousands and keeps your rig on the road when others can't.